Pranam, Jai Jinendra. As usual, we'll start with the Prarthana, and then I'll explain to you what we're going to cover in the class today. Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayurvedanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam, Namo Orientanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayurvedanam, Namo Vatsayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pavapanasano, Mangalanancha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam, नमो अरिहंताणं नमो सिद्धाणं नमो आयर्याणं नमो उत्सायाणं नमो लोये सप्प साहुणं ईसो पंचनमुक्कारो सब्ब पावपणासणो मंगलाणं च सब्बेसिं पडमं हवै मंगलम् वीर सर्वसुरासुरेंद्र महेतो वीरमुदा संस्कृता वीरेणाभियत स्वकर्मनिचयो वीराय नित्यं नमः वीरातीर्थमिदं प्रभुतमतुलं वीरशघोरं तपो वीरश्रीधृति कीर्तिकान्तिनिचय श्रीवीरभद्रं दिश कमठे द्रणेन्द्र च स्वचितं कर्म कुरुते प्रभुस्थुल्य मनोवृत्ति पार्श्वनाथ श्रियेस्तु वः अंगूठे अमृतवसी लब्धि तणा भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये मनवांछित फलदातार. Not going to share any slides today. The material for today's class, I will include that in the slide pack for next week. The topic today, the actual narrative about Anand Shravak that we've heard in the last 2 weeks, will be followed today by the story of Kamdev Shravak, the second of the 10 Shravaks that we are going to be talking about. The particular incident that is being described here is also short. We will not be going into the details of the 12 vows of a Jain householder. So the story, the narrative is pretty short. But what I'd like to take the opportunity today is to make this class interactive, introduce some subjects that I think are important for us all to understand in relation to our spiritual progress, and reflect on what the story of Kamdev Shravak tells us, teaches us, and how it is possible for some great men like Kamdev Shravak and other Shravaks to actually follow that path even while living within sansar, and so much so that they are cited as examples by Bhagwan Mahavir to the monks and nuns that he is addressing. So let's get into the story, but can I urge you all to actually get ready and whatever you need to do to be in this class as if you are physically present, so that we can all see each other. Thank you very much, Sudhir who listened to me the other day and said, yes, he will keep his video on. So thank you for that. And the rest of you, if you can, it doesn't have to be just now. Just if you need to get ready, do that, and we can keep our videos on. I mean, it's not compulsory. If you are really uncomfortable with that, then there is no compulsion. One other thing that Darshnaben, Mira, and we were discussing last week was the class does get prolonged and it does get difficult for the Zoom team and the others to see because it extends for too long. So we'll resume our 8 o'clock start time from next week and try and finish by about 9:15. So just to remind you, and I think in the message that you get for next week, the timings will, though on the advertised timing, it is still 8 to 9:15, but the message that you get, we will try and stick to starting at 8 o'clock from next week. So Kamdev Shravak. It is quite telling that the first two Shravaks that are described in this narrative both come from the same place, the city of Champa Nagari, and the particular suburb that we were talking about, where we heard about Kamdev Shravak as a Vanijya Gram. In Trishashti Shalaka Purush Charitra, Vanijya Gram is described as a city. So Vanijya Gram Namnu Nagar. In this, it also says Vanijya Gram Name Nagar. And in the narrative on Kamdev Shravak, it says Champa Jit Satru Raja. It is the same king that is described in the story on Anand Shravak. It's possible that these names were used um in a mixed up pattern, and in those times it may have meant that Vanijagram was maybe a satellite city or something. Champa was the big city. Uh, but whatever it is, the point is that both these stories are based in the same geographical area uh, in India at that time. The narrative starts with the statement that in this city of Champa, there was a king called Jitsatru, which was the same and the same time that we heard about in the first story on Anand Shravak. They used to live Gruhupati. The term Gruhupati means a senior uh, and wealthy businessman, somebody who is highly respected in the community and was a pillar of the society. So, in this city ruled by King Jitsatru, there was a Grupati or a wealthy businessman called Kamdev, and he lived there with his wife Bhadra. And then it describes the wealth that he had, and from the narrative in Trishasti Shalaka Purush Charitra, I discover that when we are talking about Hiranya Koti, that is the term that is used in this Updesak, uh, this particular sutra, Upasak Dasa, that is translated in Trisasya Shalaka Purusharitra as crore. Koti means crore, meaning about 10 million. And the currency, I presume, are gold coins. So it's still a huge amount of wealth. So Kamdev had the wealth equivalent of 6 Hiranyakoti, that is 6 crore Nidhanma, meaning 6 crore in savings. Similar amount on interest that was floating around for him to earn from that, and 6 crores were the amount that he used in running his household. So, in effect, he was also a huge private banker, and he also had the wealth of the cattle wealth that he had is described as 10,000 cows per vraj. Vraj means a collection, a herd, and he had 6 such herds of 10,000 cows each. Like Anand, Kamdev also visits or goes for darshan for Bhagwan Mahavir when he arrives at this Purna Bhadra Chaitya and listens to Bhagwan Mahavir's sermon, and then accepts the 12 vows of a Jain Shravak or a householder. And then as he progresses in his practice as a Jain householder, as a Shravak, he, similar to what we heard with Anand Shravak, goes and lives in the Pausatsara and follows the path and the vows that he has chosen. Now, we used the word Pratima last time. So the narrative goes on to describe that in the Pausatsara, Kamdev Shravak performs the Pratima Dharan Karine Raya, meaning that he takes a vow for advanced practice as a Shravak, as a householder. And as I mentioned last time, 11 such advanced practices are described. And I found the reference of this 11 Pratimas in Shraddh Vidhi Prakarana. Shraddh Vidhi Prakarana is a very powerful and detailed description of the conduct of a Jain householder, and it is there are many different editions of this, and they have all been written at different times. This particular one was compiled by Pujya Panyas Vajrasen Suri Maharaj Sahib. Many of you might have heard about him. He was a great Mahatma Saint Panyasji, and he is often just known as Panyasji. And his life was particularly exemplary. But learning more about his life is something we can do at another stage. So the 11 Pratimas that are described, I'm just going to introduce the topic and just give you a taster of what these Pratimas, one of the Pratima is, and then go one or two of them, and then leave that for now. Maybe we can go into the details later on. This is described in the 17th sort of section, or the 17th chapter, if you'd like to call it that. The word that is used in Gujarati is dwar, meaning the 17th door. And it starts with this narrative that Shravake Pratimadi Tapasya Karvi. Pratima Adi Tapasya Karvi, meaning its advanced practice. Tapasya is the kind of tap. And Adi means similar to that. And this advanced practice is in effect, a preparation for becoming a monk. So it starts with something that lasts for a month. એક માસાદિક માસિકી આદિ 11 પ્રતિમાઓ કઈ છે એ ગણાવે છે. So it starts with the first pratima that lasts for a month, and the way it is described is the name is Darshan Pratima, and it says Raja Bhiyogadi Chha Agar Rahit Sradan Pramukh Char Gune Kari સહિત એવા સમકિતને ભય લોભ લજ્જા આદિ દોષ વડે અતિચાર ન લગાડતા એક માસ સુધી પાળવું અને ત્રિકાળ દેવ પૂજા વગેરે કરવું તે રૂપ જાણવી. So the foundation is laid by this darshan pratima, which lasts for a month, during which the Shravak is extremely careful that his darshan means his samyaktva, his conviction, his faith, his belief in the right path, the shraddha or the faith in Dev Guru Dharma, and also the understanding of the deeper meaning of samyaktva, meaning the conviction about the knowledge of self, about the soul and the body being separate, and all that. Here, in particular, when most of you are probably not, some of you may have attended the classes that you've done in Gujarati on Samyaktana, Sharshat Bol, the 67 different descriptions or different steps of Samyaktva, or the true faith conviction. And in that, there are different stages described which can potentially harm your conviction, can potentially make it difficult for you to actually conduct yourself within the boundaries of that conviction. And here the Darshan Pratima is Raja Bhig Yogadi Chha Agar Rahit, meaning the freedoms that you have given yourself when you are taking the vow of Samyaktva, meaning that I completely accept that this is what I'm going to believe in, and this is what I'm going to stay within the boundaries of, and this is my Dev, this is my Guru, this is my Dharma. The freedom that are given is that if you are in danger of your life, if there is a danger from the king, if there is danger from something else, or if you are troubled by various greed and things like that, then these are faults that you may sometimes experience in your conduct of the particular vrat. And these are the things that we ask for forgiveness during the conduct of pratikraman. So samyaktwana je atichar che in say Savansari pratikraman, that is described in Gujarati, but it is included in the Vanditu Sutra, that is part of the daily pratikramans. So samkit ne bhai lob lajja adi dosh vade atichar na lagadta. So for that month you are extremely vigilant and careful that your conviction does not even waver, for your faith does not waver for even a short while during that 1 month. So the level of mental readiness, the level of spiritual awakening and awareness that you need to practice is maintained for a month, and that is the first pratima. So somebody asked, what are pratimas? So this is the first pratima that is being described. લજ્જા આદિ દોષ વડે અતિચાર ન લગાડતા 1 માસ સુધી પાળવું. એન્ડ ઇન એડિશન ત્રિકાળ પૂજા કરવી. પૂજા, દેવ પૂજા વગેરે કરવું તે રૂપ જાણવી. મીનિંગ, so morning, afternoon, and late afternoon or evening, you do puja on a daily basis. So Trikar Dev Puja, so you do darshan. So that is maintained for a month. And the subsequent pratimas are then followed. But every subsequent pratima is conducted in addition to the first pratima. So if you have started the first pratima, you conduct yourself for that 1 month in that way. And when you then accept the second pratima, then you carry on conducting yourself in the first pratima in addition to performing in the second pratima. So just quickly, the second pratima is called Vrat Pratima, and that is for 2 months. ખંડના તથા વિરાધના વગર 5 અણુ વ્રત પાડવા. So the 5 minuscule vows, the 5 vows, the minor vows, as in comparison to the great vows of a Jain monk, as we have heard, these are called the minor vows. So Khandna Tatha Viradna Vagar. So all those 5 vows without any kind of fault that you might, if you are not vigilant, indulge in the conduct of those or in the performance of those vows, or in terms of that you are vigilant, that you don't actually break them, and you are following those 5 vows to the letter, and you are constantly vigilant that you are not breaking any of those vows even in a minor way. So વિરાધના વગર 5 અણુ વ્રત પાડવા તથા પ્રથમ પ્રતિમાની ક્રિયા પણ સાચવવી તે રૂપ જાણવી. So while you are doing this, you are being constantly vigilant about this particular Vrat Pratima. You are also being vigilant about the Darshan Pratima. So progressively, it goes on like that till the 11th Pratima. You are increasingly vigilant and your practice changes massively. So anybody who actually undertakes this is taking on a massive, fantastic change in their lifestyle. And the 11th Pratima is almost like living like a monk. And we can go into the details if any of you are interested later on. So Kamdev Shravak પ્રતિમાને ધારણ કરીને રહેતા. So he has started this pratima, and once when he is following his conduct very diligently and vigilantly, one particular Dev from Devlok, having heard Indra, that is the king of Devs, once during their assemblies, mentions to all the various devs who were attending that particular sort of sabha or conference. So when the king is sitting in his court, so it's like the Indra is sitting in his court and all the other devs are there. The Indra mentions that in Bharatvarsh, that is the land that we are in the city of Champa, there is a person called Kamdev, who is a Shraman Upasak, meaning he's a Shraman Upasak, he is a Shravak. He's so firm and steadfast in his conduct that no Dev, meaning anybody with great powers, Danav, Yaksh, Rakshas, Kinnar, Kimpurush, Moharag કે ગાંધર્વ નિર્ગ્રંથના પ્રવચનથી ચડાવી શકે તેમ નથી. So this particular person, Kamdev, is so steadfast and firm in his conduct and in his belief that no Dev with whatever power can actually move him from his conviction and shift him from that position. And this particular Dev feels that that is really an exaggeration, that a human being does not have the power to resist the power that a Dev can actually unleash, and the difficulties that they can bring to people who are performing sadhana. And we've heard a lot of these stories with Bhagwan Parsvanath, with Bhagwan Mahavir, and similarly some Shravaks have also suffered this kind of thing. And in this particular instance, Kamdev Shravak's example is paramount. So this particular Dev decides to test Kamdev Shravak and comes down to Bharatvarsh, to earth. And while Kamdev is standing in Kaushak Dhyan in his performance of his pratimas, he tries to shift him by various means from his concentration, from his dhyan. So he is very deeply rooted in his dhyan, in his meditation, and this Dev is trying to move him, trying to get him upset, angry, suffering, begging for mercy. And he starts off with this particular thing. He takes the shape, or he takes the form of a pisach. Pisach is a very terrible ghost. And he rushes to him with an open, huge sword and shouts and tells him, "Hey Durant Prant Lakshanwada, Aprathita Prathi, Hrim Shrim Druti and Kirtithi Rahit, Mokshna Tarasya Kamdev Samanopasak." So he says, you are following this path and you are trying to achieve moksha. And he addresses him like that with his name, says Kamdev. If you do not abandon your Shilvrat, meaning the vow of the fourth vow of Brahmacharya that you have taken, meaning being satisfied only in your wife. So, in addition, I presume he means by Shilvrat, he means all the other four vows. So that means the first five vows, and Gunvrat, meaning the other three Gunvrats that we talked about. If you don't abandon them, so if you don't actually abandon your vows, then I will cut you down with this sword and I will cut you into many, many different pieces. And you will die in great suffering. Kamdev Shravak is in deep meditation, and Kamdev does not move from his meditation. His concentration does not change. His peace does not change, even though there is a very frightening scene unfolding in front of him. He stays silent and he remains steadfast in his dhyan. This Pisach, this Dev, repeats this terrible message 2 or 3 times, but he can see that Kamdev is not actually moving from his concentration, his meditation. The Dev gets very angry and expresses his anger and starts cutting him up with his sword. And obviously, Kamdev Shravak is suffering terribly with these cuts that he is being inflicted on him by this Dev. But he does not even for a second feel frightened, feel upset, feel angry. So his meditation remains very steadfast. The Dev then becomes tired of doing this. So he takes up another form as an elephant, which they can, as Devs take up anything, any shape. And he rushes towards him with a terrible sound, picks him up with his trunk, throws him up in the air, and then as he comes down, raises his head and points his tusks on the falling body of Kamdev Shravak, and the very sharp tusks actually pierce his body. So he's basically holding him with his tusks pierced through his body. That didn't make any difference. So he's monitoring whether Kamdev is actually losing his peace and meditation, but that doesn't happen. So he throws him down and tramples him with his feet. Now, Kamdev survives all this, partly because he's strong and the Devi is testing him. So there is some control there as well. He gets tired of this as well because it's not doing anything. So he wants to try something else. Then he takes the shape of a very terrible snake, a huge cobra kind of, no, not a cobra. What is the snake that is huge and it goes around somebody and crushes them? What is in English? What is that?
But a boa constrictor or a python?
Yes, like a boa constrictor or python. In Gujarati, it's ajgar. And he encircles him. शरीर ऊपर वेटड़ाए ने भरडो लीधो. So he tightens his body tightly around Kamdev Shravak, and then with his teeth filled with venom, he bites him. Kamdev Shravak still tolerates this without losing his temper, without feeling upset, and just is constantly still and deep in his meditation. And even though all this is extremely painful, it does not move him from his dhyan. સમભાવે વેદનાને સહન કરતો કામદેવ પોતાના ધ્યાનમાં સ્થિર રહ્યો. Now, by this time, the Dev has tested him, and he is now convinced that whatever Indra said is actually true. With this terrible pain that I've inflicted on this person, he has not moved even a little bit, and his meditation, his concentration, his peace is completely retained. And he has so firmly been able to maintain his composure, he's been able to maintain his steadfastness. And the word that is used is દ્રઢ અને નિશ્ચલ પ્રતિપતિ નિર્ગ્રંથ પ્રવચનમાં પ્રાપ્ત કરી છે. So નિર્ગ્રંથ પ્રવચન means the words of Tirthankar Paramatma, the words of the true dharma, the words of Guru Bhagwans. Prapt kari છે. So he has actually digested the teachings so well that it has allowed him to be so steadfast even in the midst of such terrible pain. And then he explains to Kamdev Shravak that this is what had happened in Devlok when Indra had praised his steadfastness, and him, the Dev, not believing that any human being could actually be that firm. He comes down to test him, and he says, I came down to actually prove Indra wrong, that there cannot be any human being who can actually perform this kind of meditation, but I've been proved wrong, and therefore I bow down to you. And he uses the word Devanu Priye, so meaning he is now so worshipful of this person. He originally came with great anger and with pride, and he is now completely lost his pride, and he is bowing down to Kamdev Shravak. And it says here that પછી એમ કહ્યું તો દેવ તેને પગે પડ્યો. And then Kamdev Shravak finishes the rest of his pratima without any other difficulties, because there was nobody like this Dev to come and break his pratima. And after a while, Bhagwan Mahavir comes back to this place in Champa city, Champa Nagari, and he comes back to the same place that we heard about in the story on Anand Shravak, or Purna Bhadra Chaitya. So I presume Chaitya means a temple, but it could here mean a huge hall or something like that. And it was called Purna Bhadra. And Kamdev Shravak, on hearing the news that Bhagwan Mahavir has come, Kamdev goes and bows down to him, and then comes back home, changes his clothes. So he was actually in Pausad Vrat, meaning he was living like a monk. He was following his particular vow of Pausad Upas Vrat, and he comes back, finishes his Pausad, and dresses again as a wealthy Shravak that he was. Sud Vastro Dharan Kari, Mota Manushya Samuha Sathe. So he goes to meet Bhagwan Mahavir again with the full regalia of the status in society that he had. So people used to go to meet Bhagwan Mahavir, and as if you are going to and other great Guru Bhagwans with all pomp and ceremony. So Kamdev Shravak, befitting his status, it says here, Sud Vastro Dharan Kari Mota Manushya Samuha, with a lot of people, સાથે પોતાના ઘેરથી નીકળી પૂર્ણ ભદ્ર ચૈત્ય તરફ ગયો. Then Bhagwan Mahavir finishes his sermon. At the end, he actually addresses Kamdev personally and says, describes this particular incident when that Pisach, that Dev, had come down and tried to break his meditation, break his dhyan. And Bhagwan Mahavir praises the steadfastness with which he conducted himself, meaning Kamdev Shravak, and did not shift from his meditative position even for a second or less. And then Bhagwan Mahavir says to the monks and the nuns gathered in that particular sermons in the Samvasaran, Aryo. Aryo is the word that is used here to describe the Sadhu Bhagwans and Sadhuji Bhagwans. Aryo em kaine nirgranth nirgranthiyone. Nirgranth meaning monks, nirgranthio, meaning nuns. બોલાવીને શ્રમણ ભગવાન મહાવીરે એમ કહ્યું કે ઘરમાં વસતા આ શ્રમણોપાસક. So this person living in a house, living as a householder, પોતાના વ્રતના પાલનને, so in following his vows, withstands divya, meaning the kind of difficulties created by a dev with great power. Manushik means terrible, અને પશુએ કરેલા ઉપસર્ગોને, meaning that person, divya manushik, and pashu, meaning the elephant and the cobra or the python, કરેલા ઉપસર્ગોને સારી રીતે સમભાવે સહન કરે છે. So he actually withstood that. તેમનાથી ચલાયમાન થતા નથી અને પોતાના વ્રતમાં તત્પર રહે છે. So he was very steadfast. તો હે આર્યો, so then he says to the munis, the monks and the nuns, તમારે શ્રમણ નિર્ગ્રંથોએ અને નિર્ગ્રંથીઓએ તો આ દ્વાત્સાંગ ગણી પિટિકમાં વર્ણવેલા આચારોને બરાબર સુરક્ષિત રાખવા માટે. દ્વાદસાંગ ગણી પિટક. What is the reference here? What does દ્વાદસાંગ mean? Many of you have heard this word. I know Sheila Ben has heard, and I don't know who else is in the class. Shalina, Bijal, they've all heard it. Okay. Dwad Sang means the 12 ang. Dwad means 12. Ang means the 12 angs. That is the whole body of Shrut Gnan, of the total knowledge that is created by the Gandhar Bhagwants when they first become Gandhars, and Bhagwan gives them the Tripadi, Upaneiva, Vigamveiva, Duveiva. And then with the great intellect that they have, they create the whole total body of knowledge that is called Dwad Sangi. So Bhagwan Mahavir tells the munis, the sadhus and the sadhvijis that Dwad Sang Gani Pitakma, Gani Pitakma, Varnavela Acharone. Gani is Ganadhar, Pitak is their creation, I presume. I mean, I'm not familiar with the Gani Pitak as a word, but I'm assuming that Gani means Ganadhar. Varnavela Acharone. So all the rules of conduct that are described in the Dvat Sangi, Surakshit Rakha Mate, so to keep those vows sacred and steadfast, Barabar Tayar Revuje. So you should all be very firm as well, like this particular Kamdev Shravak actually demonstrated that he was. તેમાંથી જરા પણ ચલિત ન થવું જોઈએ, meaning you should not shift from that position and your steadfastness. અને માર્ગમાં જે યાતનાઓ આવે તે પણ સહન કરવી જોઈએ. So all the difficulties that you might actually face following that particular path, then you should with some bhav accept that. Just on this very quickly, how many of you get the messages on Jain Patsara? I think the ones from Jayeshbhai. There is a particular video, I think, that was shared today or yesterday, I'm not sure, about the Gunanuvad of I think Hemvallabh Vijayji, the Acharya, who was in Siddhwad for his Chaturmas. And Param Pujya Panyas Labdivallabh Vijayji is describing the virtues of this Acharya Maharaj. Anybody heard that today? I don't know if heard today or yesterday. Yesterday, I think it was shared yesterday. Anybody? Bijal?
No, not yet, sorry.
Okay. That's fine. Shiraben? No. I mean, in modern days, the kinds of Acharya Bhagwans and Guru Bhagwans that we have is describing the life of this particular Guru Bhagwan is now an Acharya who is very quiet, but his conduct over the years and what he has done speaks volumes of the kind of person he is. Some of you may have met him. I have not. My son Mukul has. And what he has described to me demonstrates the power of their sadhana. But what was being said about this person, this Acharya Maharaj, in this sermon is very moving. So if you get that particular video, please listen to it. It is in Gujarati. Uh, it is a narrative of this person's life with him sitting next to him, and he is sitting there quietly, not actually wanting to listen to all the great virtues that Param Pujya Panyas Labdhi Vallabhiji is explaining. But the kinds of things that he did in his life or he has done in his life to speak volumes. So that kind of following of the path that is being described here and for which Bhagwan Mahavir is giving Kamdev Shravak as an example is something that is inspirational to all of us with respect to advanced practice. So I'll finish the narrative here now. I hope not having slides was not difficult for you, but I hope that I've conveyed the story and the associated simple introduction to advanced practice uh, well enough for you to grasp the essentials. Now, if you can, please switch on your videos. Let's give ourselves about maybe about 7, 8 minutes, 10 minutes of some discussion. And all of you can, even you, Meera and Darshana, if you so feel, switch on your videos. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. What I'd like to just point out something that never ceases to amaze me, that what lies within these people that makes it possible. So people with this level of commitment to conduct and what is within them that actually makes it possible for them to withstand. So, I mean, we all know about how Bhagwan Mahavir and Bhagwan Parsvanath actually withstood terrible upsargas during their life. You've heard of that. But even ordinary people, when they go this far, what is it that actually generates within them that make it so easy and possible for them? So we've heard about Metta Rajmuni, we've heard about others. And just one question on that context that I'd like to ask you. While they are suffering this terrible pain, are they in pain? Simple question.
Probably not, because they are able to separate their soul to the body.
So is their body hurting or not?
They don't feel it because their existence is within the soul rather than in the body.
So they don't, I mean, they definitely feel it, but they have been able to separate, as you say, the pain and that experience from their true self. So you're very right. The true self is the soul, and that awareness of the separateness, the fundamental fundamental path or the fundamental steadfastness of recognizing, and the first step towards spiritual progress is that recognition that I am not the body.
Mhm.
And that separateness, and not just being able to verbalize it, but actually at a deeper, at a level of feeling it, meaning, so you're describing it rightly, that you are living within yourself. You're not living with anything outside of yourself. So yes, you're right. So that makes it possible. How, the next question, how can you get to that level of conviction?
Very difficult, very difficult.
No, I know, but what are the fundamental steps? What is it? So what I'm asking you all to is explore what is it within us. So if we reflect on our conduct on a daily basis and everything that we do and react to, our actions, our thoughts, our speech is in response to an experience or a thought or a plan or something that is completely focused on everything that exists outside of us. So everything within our world and everything in the outside world that we look at and concentrate on is outside of us, and we are living there. How do we separate that from the living within? And people who have reached that stage, and there are people as householders who are actually in that position. So when we talk about somebody having achieved samyaktva, so for example, Shrenik Raja, Krishna Maharaja, they were all holders of what is called Kshaik Samyaktva. So they had got to that point of that experiencing that separateness, and they lived their life as kings throughout with that separateness. So they conducted themselves in their lives with all different aspects of it, but spiritually being constantly aware of that separateness. So they were holders of that particular level of spiritual development called Kshaik Samyaktva, which once it comes, never disappears. So if we have ever experienced samyaktva, we may have experienced it in what is either called aupsamik, meaning that it is due to the suppression of monia karma, or kshayopsamik, meaning partly suppressed, partly destroyed monia karma. But all those are temporary stages. Whereas this kshaik samyaktva, once it comes, until that person goes to moksha, it never disappears. So both Krishna Maharaja of Mahabharat time, cousin of Bhagwan Nemnath, and King Shrenik were at that stage. So they were neither uh, steadfast in their conduct, meaning as Shravaks. So they were not monks, but they still had that level of spiritual development that allowed them to live their lives. So, and when we see that in the examples that we have heard about particularly Srenik Raja, we have heard that story a few times. So, how do we get there? Not an answer that will come immediately, but all I'm trying to do is give you that question, because I think exploring that question within ourselves takes us to the point of self-reflection that this is who I am. What is it that is stopping me from not reacting to all that is outside of me? Why am I so attached to all this? And when one begins to explore that, the peace and happiness that experienced people describe to us, we never experienced that, but they describe that the level of peace, calmness, happiness, anand, which stems from the soul itself, that you may experience, is something that once you have experienced that, everything else becomes meaningless. So this is how that particular stages are described. So what I'm trying to say is that when people actually are being steadfast in their particular meditation dhyan, this is how deep they are, and this is what they are deeply experiencing. So all that is outside and all that their body is experiencing, pain, pleasure, desire, whatever is being thrown at them, has little meaning. Not that somebody just with Samyaktana is not following the vows of a Shravak or a monk, may in conduct may not have moved very far, but the foundation of progressing to that conduct is there in the achievement of Samyaktva. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions? Anybody? Have I confused you all?
No, it's just no, you haven't. It's I understand it, but it's just trying to get it through my head that how can it be possible in current world? Because the examples we see is for many, many
True.
moons ago.
It is difficult, but the foundation of that can be laid down here. That understanding can be laid down here. What we are talking about in yesterday's talk on Uttarayan Sutra is that sanskar that you can, and it requires repeated swadhyay, it requires co constant practice, because in the current world that we are living in, we need daily reminders. We need to find time for some level of that kind of spiritual practice. And that practice is not something that you got to sit down in meditation. It is what goes on in here and what goes on within yourself in the heart. And you can do it while eating, drinking, cooking, walking, talking with people. You can do it all the time. But it is
With
that,
difficulties.
yes, difficult, but if you get the level of understanding, and that is what we are trying to do in all these classes, we are trying to get to that level of understanding where we begin to, first of all, understand the fundamentals. So it's important to learn about the Nav Tattvas. It's important to learn about the conduct of simple rituals like Samayik Pratikrama. All that is part of it. Samayik Pratikraman, Dev Darshan, Chaityavandan, Puja, all those things are basic. And then in terms of other conduct, practicing the kind of tap that a lot of people like Bijal Ben, Jayashri Ben, they are all performing quite severe tap, and many of you here I know do the Ambel Oli. So all those things are good practice. So carrying on with that, but don't limit yourself to just the practice. Focus on the learning and the understanding. Because ultimately, the effort that you make to change what goes on in here and in here is what forms the firm sanskar. Enough said for today. Heavy stuff. Apologies if it's been difficult. Last call for any questions. No? Okay. Let's end today. ચીનાજ્ઞા વિરુદ્ધ કંઈ પણ બોલ્યો હો તે સભી મન વચન કાય કરી તસ મિચ્છામિ દુક્કડમ. If I've said anything that is against the teachings of Jain Dharma, of our Tirthankar Paramatmas and Guru Bhagwans, I ask for forgiveness. Sarvamangalamangelyam, Sarvakalyana-karanam, Pradhanam Sarvadharmanam, Jainam Jayati Sasanam. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
And
Just a reminder, next week's
next
lesson
week, 8
will
o'clock.
be
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
You. More videos on next week, if possible, please.